long after slavery was supposed to be abolished. A shocking story.
I was trapped. I couldn't go home. And I begged them to send me home, and they wouldn't want to do it.
Turning Point goes undercover.
Take that down. Okay. Take that down.
Okay. To investigate modern-day slavery. In the United States, America's neediest, trapped in labor camps.
He told me I'd be indebted to him forever, so I wasn't going anywhere.
I realized how my ancestors felt in the slavery days.
On another continent, young girls tricked into leaving their homes, forced into prostitution, with no possibility of escape.
If the police are so involved in this, who's going to clean up the mess?
No, nobody, that's the problem.
And halfway around the world, 8-year-old children locked in factories to make goods sold here in our country.
He never paid me any money, and he never allowed me to go home.
Correspondent Don Kladstrup goes on a dangerous raid to try and free them. An inspiring story. Meet the heroes fighting to end slavery, once and for all.
Turning Point. Tonight, of human bondage, slavery today.
Good evening. I'm Forrest Sawyer. It doesn't seem possible, does it? Say the word slavery in 1994, and most people assume you're talking about a problem that was abolished years ago. And yet human rights groups estimate that around the world, more than 200 million men, women, and children are being held against their will. Teenage girls tricked into prostitution in the Brazilian jungle. Children in India forced under horrendous conditions to produce expensive rugs that end up in American homes. And in this country, people lured from homeless shelters to a new life of backbreaking labor. The fight against slavery can take many forms, from those working to pass new laws to those who risk their lives to free others. Tonight, Turning Point correspondent Don Kladstrup takes you behind closed doors to reveal startling evidence of slavery in modern times.
The banks of the Ganges, India's holiest river. Thousands gather to take part in a centuries-old ritual, to wash away their sins. But just beyond this sacred river is a sin that cannot be washed away. At the heart of India's most famous export, children forced into slavery to weave carpets. And not just here, but in Pakistan and Nepal. Children weaving hundreds of millions of dollars of carpets, almost half of which end up in the United States.
We are forced to work in this terrible place. 6-year-old boys are kept here for 5 years, and no one goes home even to visit. The smallest kids who don't know how to weave, they are the ones who are beaten the most.
I'm still not very good at weaving, so my fingers are cut. I weave too slow. I'm constantly beaten.
Throughout the Indian subcontinent, 1 million children huddle over looms in cramped, stifling sweatshops, destroying their lungs, their eyes, and disfiguring their bodies.
I'm 13 and I have been doing this work for 3 years. I don't like this life. I want to do anything except this.
These are kids. They're 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. They can't defend themselves. They're helpless. And we're just turning them over to people that exploit them. And we just can't permit it to go on.
But New York carpet importers deny the children are being exploited.
It gives kids something to do. It's not hard labor, they like what they do.
It's a family business. It is not all that bad what they say over here. You know. Here they exaggerate everything.
The industries...
It's not an exaggeration, according to Senator Tom Harkin. He's sponsoring a bill that would ban imports of goods made by children. And he's backed by a leading crusader for children in India, Kailash Satyarthi.
There's an ad here for a carpet. Here, Star of India. How much would these kids make? How much would these kids make working on a rug like that?
Well, in most of the cases, the children are not given any amount of money, no wages at all.
How do children become slaves? A big part of the answer is here, in India's poorest villages, often hundreds of miles from the looms. The rains have failed here for years. Desperate to feed their families, farmers like Tkach were fair game for child traffickers who deceived them, gave them a few dollars and promised to take their sons to good jobs. That was 2 years ago. Although they've tried, they can't get their children back.
It's like a jail where they keep them. They work, eat, and sleep in the same room.
I thought slavery was abolished.
Yes, but not for us.
They could be anywhere. Hidden in the most remote corners of India's carpet belt. But Kailash Satyarthi will go to any lengths to find them. 15 years ago, he gave up the comfort of an engineering career. Now he's on the road over 200 days a year, leading India's fight against child slavery.
When I see these children, I think that these are my own children. And it could happen with my own children.
Today, he's come to Handia, a town not far from where he believes the children of Tkach's village are being held. His first step, getting approval from local officials. Without his cajoling, they wouldn't lift a finger or provide a police escort.
Is this the route that you're going to be taking? Yeah.
Now with the parents, Kailash directs a final strategy session. How to raid the factory and rescue the children. Surprise is critical, but fraught with danger.
It's always risky. We could be attacked anytime. One of my friends, he was killed.
Nobody from the raid knows what awaits them. Dozens of other efforts have failed because corrupt officials tipped off the factory owners. Rushing into the factory, Kailash finds the children from Tkach's village, too traumatized to understand what is happening.
Until I saw my son today, I felt my blood had dried up inside me.
I thought I would never see my father again.
How old are these children?
These are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, up to 14 years, something like that. So many of them are just 6 or 7.
What is it like here for them?
They are given some rice, small quantity of rice, and these boys have to boil the rice and they eat together. Sitting over here, working over here.
Freed from the looms where some have labored half their lives, all show scars of their ordeal.
So you will find all the finger cuts in the hands of these small children. Yeah, look at this.
Sliced fingers, lungs damaged by woolen particles.
So thin and having a lot of lungs problem, and they are losing their lungs and they don't know, unfortunately.
Suddenly, another locked door is discovered. Another group of dazed children emerges, including a 10-year-old called Israel. For 2 years, Israel slaved 12 hours a day, without a day of rest or a day back home.
The loom owner convinced my mother that I would have a good wage and good food, and I could go home once a month, but he never paid me any money, and he never allowed me to go home. When my brother came to rescue me, I was beaten.
But this rescue mission is not over. Kailash learns from Israel and the others that more children are being held, just down the road.
They obviously knew that we were on our way.
Yeah.
Someone has tipped off the factory owner, but not soon enough. Upstairs in a locked room are the children the loom owners were trying to hide.
More children. They were kept inside.
Fear is etched on their faces. Their master said the police would kill them. All Kailash can do is reassure, over and over again. You are free, he tells them. We will take you home.
You can look at their faces. This is the real slavery. One can easily read the real medieval age slavery which is still existing in their face, in their hearts, in their eyes.
A medieval world that Kailash keeps exposing. As each locked door is opened, it's a small victory of liberty over slavery. And just when every last door seemed open, something even more extraordinary. Chased into the trees by their masters, boys by the dozens are perched like birds with clipped wings. They do not understand, cannot imagine that they are now free. Finally, the last of the 126 children freed this day.
Many boys, he's saying.
Many boys out there?
Many boys out there, they were chased away there.
Did you ever try to run away?
I didn't try to run away because I thought I'd be lost.
Did you know that most children, like you, are going to school? They're not working like you have had to.
I wanted to go to school too, but once they brought me here, I couldn't do anything.
There is a school in this village, but classes weren't open to Israel and the others. The school principal was one of the men arrested for enslaving the children. You've made slaves of other people's children, he says. You should be ashamed of yourself.
He's in charge of the children.
Yeah, he's in charge of the children here.
And who does the principal work for?
Ideal Industries.
Ideal Industries, he says. A carpet factory just down the road.
No, the claim made by them is absolutely wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
But the owner could not refute the hard evidence found during the raid, an Ideal order book. And who does Ideal sell to? Some of the largest importers in New York City, including Bukhara.
We as an importer would not buy any carpets that were made by slave children. And we don't know of anybody, and there's nobody really to prove that there is slave children weaving carpets.
Then you should take a look at this.
Mm-hmm.
The warning from the owners was, you know, run, hide children. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. We are shocked, but I'm saying this doesn't represent the rest of the other exporters.
You do business with Ideal?
Yes, I do business with Ideal.
But Eric Khalili doesn't think Ideal is any different from several hundred other carpet exporters.
All of them, they use child labor, with a very, very, very few exceptions. Unfortunately, in countries like India, you can buy people.
Buying anything from exporters using child labor will be illegal in the U.S. if Senator Harkin's bill is passed.
I don't care if you're born in America, if you're born in Bangladesh or India or anywhere else. The value of a child to be free from exploitation and child abuse and slavery is a right that's inherent in every child.
We are free. We are not afraid of the master. Today's raid is the single biggest success in a 15-year crusade that's freed 24,000 children. Are they anxious to go home? Once they leave this temporary camp and return home, many of the children will be taught a new skill in a school set up by Kailash. But first, having spent much of their childhood in slavery, they have to learn how to be children again, how to laugh, how to play. Just 2 days ago, Israel was a frightened, bewildered little boy, but not anymore.
I've dreamt of being home so many times, and my family would always ask, how did you make it back? But the next morning, when I'd wake up by the looms, I would be so sad. But just yesterday, I saw my home again in my dreams.
Today, that dream came true. Israel was with his family again and looking forward to going to school. Tilak was full of joy too, riding to his village with Kailash, bringing back a treasure many parents thought was gone forever, their children. For the first time in 2 years, the whole village had a reason to celebrate.
I'm so happy. It seems the world has turned green.
In this parched region, where a son given up for lost finally came home, it seemed like a small miracle, like a long-awaited rain.
U.S. congressional investigators have found evidence of child labor, producing not only carpets, but clothes, shoes, furniture, and more, items that could be found in any of our homes. Senator Harkin's bill would prohibit any product made with child labor from being exported to the U.S. Coming up, our hidden cameras capture scenes of slavery right here in the United States. But first, the cruel tricks used to lure young girls into a life of forced prostitution in one of the most remote spots in the world.
Turning Point of Human Bondage, Slavery Today, will continue in a moment.
The Amazon. Mile after mile of impenetrable jungle. The size of the continental United States. So remote, so forbidding is this Brazilian rainforest, almost no roads have pierced its heart. But just below the floor of this jungle runs a river of gold, and now an endless stream of men hungry to make their fortune. There's another way to make a fortune in this wilderness. Sell the gold miners what they want: mining supplies, alcohol, and young women. Girls flown deep into the jungle and lured to one of hundreds of isolated gold camps. Take away the plane and broken-down Jeep, and the girls have landed on Main Street in a rerun of the Wild West. Their final destination, a brothel, full of naive young girls, like Chieta.
Além da gente ser que nem eu era de primeiro, né? Prostituta.
First of all, I was a prostitute, and on top of that, I was a slave. Everybody treated us like dogs.
Chieta was only 15, desperate to find work, and had no idea what she was getting into.
I met a nice man who said, "Call your friends. I have work for you as a waitress, but you have to go there by plane."
She was just one of several dozen girls flown deep into the jungle and dropped in the middle of nowhere, a gold camp called Kyukyu.
When we got there, the town was full of gunmen, including the nice man who hired us, who now looked really mean. "This is where you're gonna work," they said, "in this brothel."
Now you're going to suffer, they said. How can that be, we asked. Can we work somewhere else? No, they said. Only in the brothels. Can we call our mothers, we cried. There is no way to call, they said. You can't leave this place.
Everyone talks about the gold fields, so the girls are curious to come here. But after they arrive, they quickly regret it, because this is the jungle. And life here is hard.
But not for those getting rich. This is Grande, a brothel owner who lures young girls to the Amazon with the promise of easy money.
If I bring in 5 girls, I split the cost of chartering the plane with them. They don't have to pay me right away, they pay little by little.
That's what he told 17-year-old Erica, who hoped to send back her earnings to her widowed mother.
The biggest mistake in my life was coming here.
Now she's trapped in another isolated village called São Domingos. And instead of making money, every day she is deeper in debt to Grande, charged hundreds of dollars for airfare, medicine, and food.
We have to keep sleeping with men. Every week we have to pay for food, and the bill just gets bigger and bigger. I owe so much money. I can't go home.
In fact, they are a slave. All of the money that they get go directly to their owners.
Gilberto Dimenstein is the investigative reporter who first uncovered the scandal of Brazil's slave girls. How do they know what kind of a bill, what kind of a debt they're running up?
They don't know. That's the problem. They don't know.
Then how do they ever pay it off?
They don't pay it off. They don't pay. All of the girls that you are going to find, all of the girls that are going to talk, they're going to say, we cannot escape.
Girls like Goretti, who was 16.
I saw so much suffering there, so many friends dying. All of us were trapped in this terrible place.
3 girls did run away, and the gunmen sent after them brought back their nipples and their ears.
It was the proof they needed to collect their reward for killing the girls.
We went to Kyukyu to see if any of the gold miners could confirm these stories.
We've heard, for instance, you know, some girls were killed just for trying to escape.
Sim, é verdade.
Yes, it's true.
Maltratadas, sim.
Girls were killed because they tried to run away.
But we got a different story from one of the brothel owners, Zakaboko.
These girls say that they were beaten and they were even threatened with death if they didn't obey or if they tried to run away. Is it true?
No, no one was ever killed here. If a girl ran away and the man who brought her back was too rough, the police would arrest him. That's why we had the police here.
The very same police who were in the pocket of the brothel owners, according to journalist Diemenstein.
Didn't the police understand that the girls are trapped there?
So the police is part of the business.
So brazen were the police, they even had a list of the payoffs from each brothel, pinned to their office wall.
I was looking, and I looked this in the wall. It was fixed in the wall. And I see, what is this?
This was on the wall of the police station?
Yes.
In plain sight?
Yes.
If the police are so involved in this, who's going to clean up the mess?
No, nobody, that's the problem.
Finally, in the winter of '92, someone did take action. Spurred by Diemenstein's investigation and a letter smuggled out by 15-year-old Chieta, federal agents raided the gold camp called Kyukyu and rescued 25 young women.
When the police arrived, they asked, "Who wants to leave?" Do you remember raising your hand?
Yes, I was the first one to raise my hand, and all of us were free. And the men of the club tried to run away and hide.
Zakaboko and the other brothel owners were arrested. Less than 3 months later, they were free. The case against them going nowhere. For Chieta and her friends, however, the ordeal was over.
I was so happy getting in the plane. I was the first one to get out of Kyukyu because I was the star witness and I could be killed.
I cried. I was so happy to leave that hell. The best moment of my life was when I was in the plane coming back home.
Liberty, liberty, they chant. But that was 2 years ago. Last summer, we decided to go to the Amazon to see if things really had changed. That's when we found Erica, trapped in the other gold camp, São Domingos, and working for Grande.
If we say we don't want to sleep with a man, they force us to do it. I tried to refuse a customer once, but I was told I had to have sex with him, or else I would go to prison. So I slept with him, but I cried the whole night.
But Erica's sadness is not hers alone. Miles away in the Amazon port of Itaituba, Erica's mother wonders if she will ever see her daughter again.
She told me she was working as a cook for a man named Grande. I cry every day because I miss her so much.
My mother tried to warn me not to come here, but when you are young and naive, it's easy to do the wrong thing.
She came here hoping to help her widowed mother support 8 brothers and sisters. But now, Erica is the one who needs help, suffering from malaria and venereal diseases.
After I got sick, I was so weak I couldn't even stand up on the dance floor. But when I got just a little bit better, I had to have sex again. Now I feel so sick and drained of life.
A life which each night becomes a ritual of despair. for thousands of girls like Erica, trapped as prostitutes in the Amazon.
Turning Point reported what we found to local authorities. 4 months later, federal police raided the brothels, freeing 4 girls and arresting Grande. When we return, our investigation continues with evidence of slavery much closer to home.
Turning Point of human bondage, slavery today, will continue in a moment.
In the woods of South Carolina, a centuries-old slave village conjures images of a shameful past, an evil most thought was dead and buried. But some say slavery is still alive.
I was sold, I was used, and they're making all that money, we were making nothing, and we were sweating, and then they talking to you and driving you. I realized how my ancestors felt in the slavery days.
They had guns and stuff, they were threatening us with guns. So it was really like you were scared that we were entrapped there, we could never go home.
One of the latest cases of slavery was filed just last year.
It was here, in a wooded, isolated part of North Carolina, that a man named Willie Bonds, Jr. ran this slave camp for migrant farm workers. Bonds, who pleaded guilty last November, admits he threatened workers if they tried to escape, held them as virtual prisoners until they worked off what amounted to be an unpayable debt. It's called peonage.
It's a federal crime that has persisted on Southern farms since the Civil War. Pete Daniel, an historian at the National Archives.
I came down here and the archivist said, we have piles of material, boxes like this, filled with letters scribbled out by people who felt they were being held against their will.
Are you surprised about the degree of violence that you found here and in other cases?
The level of it and the widespread nature of it was sobering. Because we're talking about the 20th century and we're talking about a form of slavery. And peonage still goes on.
It goes on, from peaches in June, tobacco in August, sweet potatoes in September. Hundreds of workers in scores of labor camps from Georgia to North and South Carolina. Backbreaking work, 12 hours a day in the hot sun.
All the fruits and vegetables get picked by migrant farm workers. And the abuse, I think, is worse in the southern states.
Mary Ellen Beaver, a legal aid worker.
People want to eat all the good fruits and vegetables in this country, but the very people who pick them oftentimes can't afford to buy them themselves, have no way to get to the store, and are trapped in slavery.
Slavery?
Yes, slavery.
Today, this is where the modern slave masters spring their trap. Homeless shelters and soup kitchens in Florida, where crew bosses from the Carolinas recruit those down on their luck.
In Tampa, you don't hear much about people picking peaches. You don't know nothing about the camps. So it's an easier way for someone to catch their prey.
17-year-old Iris was at a soup kitchen looking for a day job when she and her friend Alfonso were lured into a crew boss's van. They say they had no idea they would end up on this highway going north.
So going down the interstate, I said, well, there are no peaches in Florida. So I asked them where we're going. So they say to South Carolina for a couple of days, and they will bring us back. You know, they will bring us back home.
But they were both taken hundreds of miles away from home, up this backcountry road in Edgefield County, South Carolina.
When I got on the van, I was so happy that I was finally going to make a lot of money. I got my hopes up high. When I got there, it was just shattered.
Their final destination, this isolated work camp surrounded by barbed wire and patrolled by dogs. The next day, they met their boss, Cliff Oliver. Everyone here calls him the Godfather.
I was trapped. I couldn't go home. I was most definitely stranded there. picking peaches. And I begged them to send me home, and they wouldn't want to do it.
It was a terrible situation to be in, and I can't believe that here, of all places, this is the United States. People live like this. It's a trap.
A trap Ken Berard fell into while running away from domestic problems in New England. Berard was recruited by another crew chief named L.D. Walker, Duke, who took him to one of his decrepit camps that we later visited with undercover cameras.
The beds, they weren't beds, they were box springs, which had fleas. There was one shower for every man, right in the same room as the bathroom. Never cleaned, it was always dirty, smelly. It was a living hell.
Berard and the others were told they were going to make good money picking peaches, but no one told him everything he needed, from food to cigarettes, could only be bought at inflated prices at Duke's company store.
Okay.
When the books were added up, Berard knew Duke had deceived him.
What do you do?
He told me I'd be indebted to him forever, so I wasn't going anywhere.
And what's the best way to hold on to workers like Berard? Sell them alcohol. Hook them on crack cocaine.
I'd go to the line, I'd smoke the rock, I'd smoke the crack. That's how they kept you down. That's how they kept your money. That's how they kept you from getting enough money to leave them if you had the chance.
I never been so close to people that took drugs, for that matter, and I was scared.
Scared of crew bosses like Duke who served time for selling heroin. Scared of the Godfather who recently pleaded guilty to cocaine possession.
I went straight to Godfather. I asked Godfather, can I go home? Okay, and then he went to my two friends, and he told them if I would go to bed with him, he would make me much happier by sending me home.
After 2 months on Godfather's camp, Iris and Alfonso decided they had to escape.
I left with a couple of other guys. It was like in the middle of the night, and they have 3 dogs. And as soon as we left, they started barking. And Godfather woke up, and we had to run down the road.
But with nowhere to run to, they ended up in another camp that was even worse.
If no one knows about a place like that, take it from me, don't ever go there. Don't ever go and pick a peach for nobody. For nobody. It's not worth it.
Finally, with help from legal aid workers, they escaped from this trap.
I never want to see a peach in my life, not even in the grocery store. I don't want to eat no more peaches until the day I die.
What are these?
Hi, are you Cliff? Last August, we went to see Godfather's camp for ourselves.
You got to get permission to come on private property.
Understand. Could I just ask you a question
about
a meeting?
Call and tell him we got some people trespassing here.
Godfather called the owner of the operation, Clark DuBose, the farmer whose peaches Iris and Alfonso had been picking.
Talk to him. Talk to the boss man.
Do you know anything about what's going on here? Do you know why they don't get the pay that they are promised? You know, when they are recruited to come in here and take part in the harvest.
Godfather wasn't interested in talking to us.
If you turn it back on me, I'll tear it up. Let me keep it off.
And neither was DuBose.
Look, we'll really get out of your hair.
I ask you to not come by here and get in your car and y'all leave and don't take anything. If you do, I'm going to take your camera.
DuBose and Godfather were fined several $1,000s for not paying their workers. The action, however, provided little comfort for workers like Berard, still trapped on another camp run by Duke.
The man told me if I had talked to anybody from the Labor Department or Agriculture Department, whatever department it was that was coming to the camp, that they'd find me in a field someday somewhere.
After complaining, Berard was driven to an even more isolated work camp run by Duke, up north in tobacco country, on land owned by a farmer named Carlisle Price.
We picked crop tobacco in rows that were like 200 feet long. I just couldn't believe what was happening. You know, it just got worse from one place to the next.
In debt to Duke, Berard says his only way out was running away. The first place he ran to was the Dillon County Sheriff's Office.
Told him where I worked for Mr. Dukes, who was a contractor for Carlisle Price. When I mentioned Carlisle Price's name, I was told to leave his office immediately, and I had an hour to leave town. They didn't want no trouble.
I cannot imagine any deputy in Dillon County telling a market worker or anyone else they have an hour to get out of town.
Captain J.T. Sawyer from the Dillon County Sheriff's Department.
I know Carlisle Price. He has a good reputation as being honest and hardworking. And but him calling Carlisle Price's name would have no effect on us investigating anything.
Well, I hope I got some kind of influence in the county because I've been here all my life. You know, I hope that people...
Carlisle Price is the farmer who hired Duke, Ken Berard's crew chief.
You feel, I mean, you don't believe these complaints? You feel that perhaps they're exaggerated?
I sure don't believe them. And that Ken Berard, whoever, he told you a big lie if he said that he escaped from the camp and run away and stuff.
It's a good old boy network. The workers are at the mercy of the local people. The majority of the farmers want the peaches picked, want the tobacco harvested, and they don't really care what happens to the workers.
But even up these isolated dirt roads, someone was willing to talk.
I'm trying to find Duke.
The cook on Duke's labor camp, Mark Slocum.
Everybody's trying to find Duke. Berard ran away from one of the camps that Duke runs after claiming that Duke, you know, threatened to kill him.
I believe what he says.
Does Duke sell drugs to the workers?
Yes.
He does?
Yes, sir.
On credit?
Yeah.
And
takes that out at the end and takes it out on Friday when he pays it.
The credit, the expense for the drugs, for the coke, it's deducted from the guy's paychecks.
I'll say this. If the correct authorities came, you know, and asked me, you know, I would not hesitate to tell them the truth about what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And the truth, in a nutshell, is?
That he's broken every law the state has as far as labor laws, as far as treatment of his people, as far as transporting drugs, as far as selling alcohol and tobacco without a license. See, when you volunteer certain information, you know, and you end up volunteering them to the wrong person, you know, you can end up in these woods.
You have people wielding guns, threatening workers. Where's the FBI, for instance?
They take a very narrow view of the law, and they say that unless they go to a camp and the man is practically chained to the wall, they can't do anything about it.
We wanted to ask the FBI about what we found here on Duke's camp, but they canceled a scheduled interview. None of Duke's assistants was willing to talk either.
Hi, are you Casey?
Who want to know?
My name's Don. I'm looking for Duke, and I was told he was here, and I saw him outside.
Finally, months after he had been fined for labor violations in Peach Country, months after the last tobacco leaf was picked, we found Duke, this time in Sweet Potato Country, in North Carolina.
Duke, they say you cheated them out of their money.
How can you?
They say they didn't get the money that you promised you'd pay them. They say you sell crack cocaine here. They say you threatened to kill them if they tried to leave the camp.
Take that down.
Okay.
Take that down.
Okay.
I got Take it down. Take it down.
Did you say that the labor contractor says that you owe him $98?
Yes.
That's outrageous.
It was Mary Ellen Beaver who compiled the complaints against Duke and the other crew bosses.
Okay, God bless you. Okay.
Then helped some of the farm workers, including Ken Berard, make it back home.
Absolutely. And call the 800 number in Florida and tell them who you are.
But Mary Ellen's work is far from over.
They're still peonage. And something needs to be done. We need to work on getting them to prosecute these people who are holding people against their will. No, it's not just history, it's going on right now.
continues. Once again from New York, Forrest Sawyer.
Dan Batista, director of the South Carolina Labor Department's Migrant Division, tells us the state has ignored his requests for new legislation and funding. And he says that's left him unable to effectively fight the abuse of migrant workers. As a result, Batista has resigned in protest. As for Godfather, Cliff Oliver, and Duke Walker, they're still working, despite the Labor Department's efforts to prevent them from operating as labor contractors. Batista and others tell us both men have found ways to sidestep the restrictions and get back to business as usual.